on DC News Now.
You know, the commander should be in DC and should be at that spot.
A deal to bring the Commanders back home to DC almost 3 decades later. The excitement and concerns around the district.
We're not just going to leave Maryland with an RFK Stadium, with an empty stadium.
And what lies ahead for Landover, Maryland if they lose the Commanders.
Hey everyone, tracking a few storms for your late evening Tuesday. We'll time them out coming up.
The Smithsonian Institute disputing claims about artifacts and exhibits being removed. The latest on the back and forth.
You're watching the station covering all of the DMV. This is DC News Now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for DC News Now at 9 o'clock. I'm Chris Flanagan.
And I'm Tosa Fakile. Susan Tran has the night off. After 3 decades away, the Washington Commanders are coming home to DC. That is, if the DC Council backs Mayor Bowser's deal with the team. DC News Now's Daniel Hamburg live at the Wilson Building.
All right, Daniel, of course, a lot of enthusiasm, but also a lot of pushback tonight.
Chris and Tosin, we're talking about a more than $3 billion investment, a good chunk of which would come from DC taxpayers. And so some of the council members here at the Wilson Building are in favor of the deal, saying that there is long-term investment and that it would be a positive thing. But other council members say it shouldn't happen, including the council chair.
Promise made.
A decade-old campaign goal seems to be coming to fruition.
Welcome home.
Mayor Muriel Bowser and the Washington Commanders have reached a deal to bring the team back to D.C., a brand new covered stadium with a view of the Capitol as the centerpiece to new development.
Thousands of new jobs, billions of new tax revenue, thousands of new homes, partnerships with local businesses.
The Commanders are putting up $2.7 billion, with another billion coming from district taxpayers.
This is the single largest private investment that we have had in District of Columbia history.
Some council members, including Ward 2's Brooke Pinto, acknowledge a tight budget, but say the investment is worth it.
Opportunities for more housing and for retail and hotels to really open up this part of Ward 7 and invite people into it is going to be catalytic for the entire neighborhood and our entire city.
Chairman Phil Mendelson is seemingly annoyed, claiming neither he nor the council were consulted about the negotiation, saying he's, quote, concerned with investing any public money into a stadium while we have constrained budgets and revenues and unmet needs. Only 4 council members were at Monday's announcement. Another 3 need to get on board.
I am confident that my colleagues like I will be hearing from so many from the community who are so enthusiastic about this project that we'll be able to get this over the finish line as soon as possible.
Now, today we also heard from Councilmember Brianne Nadeau, who said she is a no on this stadium deal. We also know that Charles Allen has voiced opposition to the deal in recent days as well. They gave the council a July 15th deadline to complete this deal and pass this bill to allow this deal to happen. We will have to wait and see how quickly the council members move on it. We're live in Northwest. Daniel Hamburg, DC News Now.
All right, still a big hurdle to get over. Daniel, thanks. Our live team coverage continues tonight. DC News Now's Max Marcilla live outside of RFK Stadium.
And Max, you've been speaking to fans all around the district today. There is a lot of excitement, literally, over this news.
Yeah, Chris and Tosin, from the fan perspective, they're really excited, hoping that a move to the old site of their team could bring about some of the glory days, some of those stadium-shaking home playoff games, and maybe even another couple of Super Bowl titles. What you can't hear from these pictures of this Washington playoff game at the old RFK Stadium is the roar of the crowd. To this day, diehard fans say you could feel it.
Everybody remembers back when RFK was actually cranking, the stadium used to jump, all that good stuff. So I'm waiting for it to come back.
The hope from the team is that this new vision for a future home at the RFK site can bring that same energy to the future team.
The name's Washington, so they should play in D.C.
The plan has the backing of football legends, including Hall of Fame coach Joe Gibbs, who was at this announcement press conference, and it certainly has the backing of these fans.
I'm going to be first in attendance, I guarantee that.
They're going to bring that energy to that community.
I think it's a prime spot because you got the metro right there.
Excitement over a better commute and game environment is felt here at Nationals Park, a good place to get fans' first reviews of the plan because the Capitol Riverfront underwent its own transformation more than a decade and a half ago. Mayor Bowser touting it as a win, with thousands of housing units and nearly 100 restaurants and bars around the baseball stadium.
Just look like what's happened around here and around Nats Park. So I think it's just really awesome.
But one thing that could be unique to the RFK site is a Super Bowl.
The city would go crazy. I think it'd be great.
All right, so you just heard a lot of excitement from fans there, and that's what we heard over and over. But there are a few concerns they brought up, specifically the potential price of tickets, which some are anticipating could be pretty high. And then also what the tailgating situation is going to be like, because the plan as released today has fewer parking spots than the stadium currently has in Landover. So a couple of things to keep your eye on there.
All right, Max, of course, a new stadium opens all sorts of possibilities for major events, and probably the biggest of all, perhaps the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and this new stadium definitely could open the door for that. In fact, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, who was at the announcement, said this brings D.C. into the picture, making it much more likely that the Super Bowl does in fact come here. We've seen that become a trend in the NFL, where some of these stadiums open and within a few years they get a Super Bowl, thinking Atlanta and Las Vegas and Los Angeles, all in that category. And the fact that D.C., this stadium would have a dome, would make the district eligible for, Chris, as you mentioned, what would be a pretty big event.
Certainly would. Doesn't get bigger than that, Max. Thank you.
All right, Max. And in Maryland, Governor Wes Moore is already looking ahead to what comes next for Landover. Months ago, he and the Commanders came to an agreement about what should happen if the team leaves. It includes a speedy demolition of the current stadium and facilitating the redevelopment of that area. Governor Moore and Prince George's County officials already have ideas for what that redevelopment could look like.
Something that's going to be a real live, work, play environment where we are going to involve things like housing. We're going to involve things like entertainment. That's going to be an attraction.
Also, we're looking at other sports venues that could potentially go there.
We will have more on reaction from Commanders fans in Maryland ahead in our next half hour.
And of course, you can find the latest on the Washington Commanders' return to the district on our website. So many stories there right now, DCNewsNow.com. Boy, if we're playing football, this is ideal. Football weather and tailgating weather.
No cloud in the sky, sunshine. I mean, you couldn't even buy this if you wanted to.
Right, tailgating, you got me.
There we go.
I was locked in. Tonight it is very clear across the region, and it's going to stay that way into your Tuesday, folks. Really, we don't see changes until late tomorrow evening. So around this time, 9, 10 o'clock, that's when we'll be tracking in the rain. So my suggestion is really not for you to have the rain gear as you're stepping out tomorrow. I just want you to be prepared really late evening. We do have a round of storms that are going to enter our space, and then we're done with them going into your Wednesday. 67 under a lot of clearing right now. Winds coming out of the south, 5 to 10 miles per hour. No big problems across the region as high pressure is taking over. D.C. is the warm spot, and then surrounding counties is a little bit cooler. Loudoun County, you're in the upper 60s as well. So you can see the East Coast is nice and clear. We do have a storm system well out towards the upper Midwest and the deep south that's causing the severe weather. That is headed our way. We have multiple rounds of rain this week. We'll take a look at that forecast coming up.
Thank you. We'll check in with you soon. In Montgomery County, police have arrested Karen Gangloff for trying to drive through a roadblock towards runners at the Pikes Peak race on Sunday. We're told this happened around 7:45 in the morning near Somerville Drive and Redland Road. An officer tried to stand in the way to stop Gangloff from driving through, but had to jump out of the way for his safety. That driver is facing first-degree assault and disorderly conduct charges. She's being held without bond.
Also in Maryland, police are searching for the person who shot and killed a woman in Prince George's County overnight. The shooting happened inside a home in Bexley Place in Suitland. Investigators believe this is a targeted shooting. So far, no arrests have been made. And in Virginia, 3 men recovering tonight after being shot Sunday night in Alexandria. Investigators say 15 shots were fired in a neighborhood on Old Dominion Boulevard. Neighbors telling us they're feeling a sense of unease.
Of course you're concerned, but because I feel it was gang related. It wasn't a random thing. Alexandria police need to have a more active presence over here. Is what they need to do.
Well, no word on the condition of the 3 men shot, but police are still searching for the shooter or shooters.
And some gun violence prevention organizations speaking out tonight after the Department of Justice canceled millions of dollars in grant awards last week. According to the DOJ's Office of Justice Programs, the canceled awards did not align with President Donald Trump's administration's priorities. On social media last week, Attorney General Pam Bondi saying the DOJ started cutting off millions of dollars in, quote, wasteful spending. President of the group Virginia Moms for Change called the cuts a moral failure of leadership and says moves like this can set vulnerable communities back.
Americans have to be willing to not fall for the idea that this is political and partisan. Wanting your children to be safe, believing that there is no such thing as other people's children has to come before division.
We reached out to the DOJ to see if they have alternatives to help local groups combat gun violence. We haven't heard back.
We have an update tonight. The Smithsonian is denying claims that artifacts and exhibits are being removed from the African American History Museum. The claims come a month after President Trump signed an executive order to remove what he calls improper ideology from Smithsonian museums. The Institute says it routinely returns loaned artifacts per agreements and rotates items on display. San Francisco civil rights leader Reverend Amos Brown telling us he received an email this month that his artifacts are being returned, and they include a Bible he had when he demonstrated with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.